David had been working abroad for years, chasing promotions and moving from city to city. His job was demanding, but the money was good, and it allowed him to build the life he'd always dreamed of. Yet, in the back of his mind, he often thought of his mother back home. She lived alone in the quiet house where David had grown up, and though they spoke on the phone every week, it had been years since they'd seen each other in person. "Come visit when you can," his mother would always say at the end of their calls, her voice soft but hopeful. David would nod along, promising to make time. But something always came up: meetings, projects, deadlines. "I'll visit next month," he'd say. But next month never seemed to arrive. One evening, after another exhausting day at work, David sat in his apartment, scrolling through old photos. He came across one of his mother, taken years ago. She was smiling in front of the house, her eyes bright with happiness. His chest tightened. It had been too long. Without thinking twice, David booked a ticket home for the weekend. The journey felt surreal. As the plane descended, he realized just how much time had passed. He hadn't walked those familiar streets or seen the old house in years. His excitement was mixed with guilt. He had allowed life to sweep him so far away from the person who mattered most. David arrived at the doorstep just after sunset. The house looked the same, a bit more worn, but still full of memories. He stood there for a moment, the weight of years spent apart settling on him. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. A few moments later, the door creaked open, and there she was, his mother, smaller and older than he remembered, but with the same warm smile. For a split second, she looked confused, and then her eyes widened in shock. "David," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Hi, Mom," he said, his own voice shaking with emotion. Tears welled up in her eyes as she reached out to touch his face, as if to make sure he was real. "I didn't expect to see you, not today," she said, her voice breaking. David wrapped his arms around her in a tight hug, feeling how fragile she had become. "I'm sorry it took me so long to come back." His mother pulled back slightly, her eyes full of both love and sadness. "I prayed every night that you would come home. I missed you so much." David's heart ached. He had been so focused on building his career, so caught up in the whirlwind of life, that he had forgotten the simple things, like how much his presence meant to her. She didn't want gifts or money. She didn't care about his job or his success. All she wanted was him. They sat together that night, talking for hours. His mother showed him the old photo albums, pointing out moments he had long forgotten. They laughed at memories and shared quiet moments of reflection. David listened, truly listened, for the first time in years. As they sat together on the couch, his mother's hand resting gently on his, David realized that nothing in the world mattered more than this: being here, with her. All the achievements and accolades meant little compared to the time they had lost. But he was here now, and that was what mattered.